Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of Way Under Underhive. This series is a series that is dedicated to brand new players into Necromunda. This series will show you all the different gangs, cults, as well as different bounty hunter groups that you can have for your campaigns in Necromunda. We'll talk about each of the gang's strengths as well as their weaknesses. We'll talk about the gang's individual fighters and how best to equip them. At the same time, we'll provide you with different lists that you could use to start off your very first campaign in Necromunda, this time with corpse grinder cults. So first thing we're going to talk about real quick are the strengths as well as the weaknesses of this very unique and very dangerous and scary looking gang. Alright, first of all, let's talk about your gang's strength. For corpse grinder cults, they're extremely powerful close combat fighters. They have weapon skill 2 up from most other fighters just to start off right off the bat. At the same time, they're extremely fast in terms of movement. When combined with the proper equipment and perks, you can actually have some of your close combat fighters be able to effectively land 12-inch or larger charging distances, depending on how you equip these guys. So because of that, your close combat fighters will be able to cross the table very, very quickly, get stuck in, and just start slicing your opponent apart. At the same time, you have the infiltrate skill, which is standard for every single initiate that you take in your gang, which means that you can quickly envelop your opponents and completely surround them using those infiltrate skills for your initiates. Now at the same time, you also have masks for your gangers, which are called your skinners, as well as your champions, who are called cutters, as well as for your gang leaders, who are called butchers. They all have these terrifying masks that give a armor buff, and at the same time, most of your enemies must either pass a cool test or a willpower test, either shoot or attack your main close combat guys, which means that your close combat fighters are extremely survivable because a lot of people's willpower checks are not very good. Now, most people have some pretty good cool checks, but for willpower though, not so much. At the same time, there is nothing random about the character advancement of each of the fighters of the gang. All your gangers are specialists, and everybody else can spend their XP, their experience points, as they see fit, which means you can really customize your gang and take them to the direction that you really want it to go into. So that's one of the major strengths about a corpse grinder cult gang. Now let's talk about some of the weaknesses for this gang. Now while they may be excellent at close combat, they're not so good at shooting. Most of the guns for the game that they can purchase are pretty much mid to low level for the most part, and at the same time being shot at is also a huge nightmare for corpse grinder gangs as well. Pinning stops your close combat guys from charging to your opponents and charging the way that you win with this gang, because charging at close combat is the main focus of a corpse grinder guild. So you have to equip your gang kind of importantly to make sure that you can mitigate as much pinning as you possibly can from long range shooting for your opponents. For example, if you're going against Van Sar, who pretty much are the shooting kings in games of Necromunda, you're going to need to bring some items in order to help mitigate those, so that way you can close up to them in close combat and kill them. So now that you have your strengths as well as your weaknesses addressed, let's talk about your individual fighters. Alright, first of all, let's talk about your leader. This guy is called the Butcher. He costs 130 credits for this character. He has movement of 5. He's got a 2+ weapon skill, a 4+ ballista skill. He's also got 4 strength, 4 toughness. He's got 2 wounds, a 4+ for his initiative, as well as 2 attacks base. He's got a 5+ for leadership, a 5+ for cool, a 5+ for willpower, as well as a 7+ for intelligence. Now, let's go and talk about this fight a little bit more in detail. So, when it comes to your guy's Butcher, this guy is a pure close combat killing machine. He's got high strength, high armor, high toughness. He's also got the terrifying rule, which makes him extremely dangerous for being shot at as well. With this guy, you want to get him stuck in as quickly as possible and start fighting people and getting those charges off on this guy. Now, because this guy is so good with his high strength and combat abilities as well, you really should focus on leadership skills for this fighter. And the reason why you want to focus on leadership skills is because this guy can do group activations. The more fighters you can get in close combat, the better off you're going to be for your gang. Unfortunately for this fighter though, he does not have access to ferocity skills. So because of that, you still need to worry about being pinned. You can't put Nerves of Steel on this guy to ignore being pinned. So because of that, you need to keep that in consideration when you create your gang. Alright, up next you have your Cutters, which are your champions for your gang. These guys cost 90 credits apiece. Let's talk about their stats. They have 5-inch for movement, as well as 3+ for weapon skill, as well as 5+ for ballistic skill. They have a strength of 4, toughness of 3, 2 wounds. They have 4+ initiative, 2 attacks as a base. Their leadership is 6, a cool of 6, a willpower of 7, as well as an intelligence of 8. So now we've done talking about the stats for these guys. Let's go and talk about what's really good about them. Your champions are your top-tiered close combat fighters. While they might not be as resilient as your Butcher because they only have a toughness of 3, they have that terrifying rule with their masks, which pretty much makes them safe from being shot at for the most part, as well as being attacked in close combat. So they're pretty reliable that way. At the same time, they also get a buff through their versatile weapons. All right, so these guys have a trait called Dervish. It says when this fighter makes a fight basic action using a weapon with a versatile trait, their vision arc extends to 360 degrees, so that way they can attack everybody around them. I would recommend giving these guys the Corpse Grinder cult icon for additional buffs as well, and the reason why is because that adds additional movement to your guys' charging abilities as well as your movement abilities as well, which will help these guys get closer in close combat as well. And the nice thing about these cutters is that you can take up to 3 of them in your gang right off the bat, so you have a max amount of champions in this gang as well, which makes it very attractive. So let's go talk about your gangers real quick. Your gangers are known as skinners. They cost 40 credits apiece. They have movement of 5, 3+ weapon skill, 5+ ballistic skill. They have a strength and toughness of 3 up, as well as 1 wound. They have a 4 up initiative, 1 attack as base. They have 7+ for leadership, 7+ for cool, 8+ for willpower, as well as 9+ for intelligence as well. Now these guys are also really good as well. So let's talk about these guys real quick. So when it comes to your guys' skinners, these are excellent close combat fighters. These also make up the gangers of your gang as well. Plus their masks actually make them more survivable as well. You get that terrifying rule that's associated with everybody else. At the same time, they also have +1 to the armor as well. Not to mention when they have this skill called Berserker Charge, which means they get that right off the bat, which means that this fighter, when they make close combat attacks as part of a charge action, they get 1 additional attack on top of that. Plus, not to mention, these guys are also specialists, which means you could actually customize their advancement as they go through. They automatically get that as well. Now, when it comes to that, to be honest, even though the skinners are really good, you can actually skip purchasing them to get more initiates if you want to, and that could actually be very useful early on, because unfortunately your fighters and the weapons they use are pretty pricey in terms of points, so having more initiates on the battlefield could be a strategy you could use as a technique to build up your gangs. So if you want to skip the skinner and focus more on initiates for your gang, that's actually a really good idea, and you can actually recruit these guys, your skinners, later on as the campaign develops. Alright, the last thing we're going to talk about are your initiates, which are basically your juvies for your gang as well. These guys cost 25 credits apiece, and they are excellent. They have 5 movement, 4 up weapon skill, 4 up ballistic skill, 3 toughness, 3 wounds, 3 strength, 3 toughness, 1 wound, They have +4 for their initiative, 1 attack. They also have 8+ for leadership, 7+ for your cool, 9+ for your willpower, and 9+ for your intelligence score as well. And these guys come with initiate's mask as well as flak armor. So let's go and talk about these guys a little bit more in detail. Now, these are excellent fighters at 25 credits apiece. Their price is really awesome for what these guys can do as well. Now, once again, having that flak armor and those masks also makes them more survivable in close combat, and at the same time, they can also use that to protect themselves from being shot at as well as fought in close combat. Not to mention, they also come with the infiltrate skill automatically, so these guys can pop up and ambush your opponents and quickly surround your enemy as quickly as possible. Now, short range shooting is what you guys are going to be doing at first, because their weapon list is actually kind of limited as well. So because of that, you're mainly going to be using pistols from right off the bat. Or if you want to, you could also buy some heavy weapons, but those are a little bit pricey as time goes on. Now, the nice thing about these guys is as the campaign develops, they can also purchase items from the trading post, unlocking some really good shooting options for these fighters as well. And it makes them really good in order to use it that way as well. So that part is really awesome. And plus, as being juvies, they can also level up and they can spend their skill points accordingly. Now, when it comes to this game, you must have at least 50% of initiates in your gang. So for every skinner, cutter, as well as butcher that you have to have one additional initiate as well. That's why skipping purchasing the skinners might be a little bit more of an advantage, because it gives you some more credits to use to level up your gang and to equip them. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about our starting lists. Alright, so the first list we're going to talk about is what I like to call the CheapSkate build. I call it the CheapSkate build because in order to create this gang, you need either one of 2 things. Either one, you have the Dark Uprising starter box set, which automatically comes with a fully kitted out gang of corpse grinders, or you buy 1 box of corpse grinder cults for your gang. Now this roster is going to cost you 1,000 credits, so you're going to be using all your credits as well. Now this gang consists of 2 fire teams. You have a support element as well as assault element. Your support fire team will consist of 3 initiates number 1, 2, and 3. Your initiates will use to infiltrate skill in order to get onto the battlefield, and you'll use smoke grenades for initiative to block off avenues of approach for your enemies. So that way your opponents can't really be shooting through those areas. It's a really good way of controlling your enemy's fire and preventing them from shooting at your fighters all around. At the same time, you also have your assault element. Your assault element basically consists of your butcher as well as 2 cutters as well as 2 skinners. So you will have that in your gang as well. Now, this is a good all-around build. It lets you try out everything that corpse grinder has to offer. So let's talk about how they're being equipped. First of all, you have your butcher with your leader. It's going to cost you 210 credits. You're going to equip this guy with paired butchers, chain cleavers for close combat, as well as commanding presence, so that way they can group activate 3 fighters. You will also have 2 cutters in this gang as well. Cutter number 1 is going to cost you 210 credits. He's got a pair of butchers, chain cleavers, as well as a corpse grinder cult icon, so that way they can get faster on their charges, as well as slaughterborn as well, which is really going to be helpful for you in getting into close combat as well. Now you have cutter number 2 as well. Cutter number 2 is going to cost you 145 credits. He's got a rotary flensing saw, so you'll be able to use that 360-degree whirlwind attack with that rotary flensing saw, and he's got rain of blows, which is going to make all of his attacks simple actions, so you can basically attack twice. Now you will also have 2 skinners in this gang. Your skinners are going to cost you both 120 credits. They're going to be armed with paired butchers, chain cleavers, and that's what you're going to equip those guys with. And then your 3 initiates are going to cost you 65 credits apiece. All 3 are equipped exactly the same way. They have stub guns for shooting, boning swords for close combat, as well as smoke grenades to create those smoke screens to protect your gang's advance as they close a distance to destroy your enemies. And that makes up the CheapSkate build. Now, the next game I have is called the Firestarter build, is what I call it, and the Firestarter build requires either having the Duck Uprising starter box set or 1 box of Corpse Grinder Cults. Now, this game is going to cost you 990 credits with 10 credits for spare as well. Now, just like your previous build, you will have 2 fire teams in this build. You have a support fire team as well as a assault fire team. Your support fire team will consist of initiates 1, 2, as well as number 3, while your assault fire team consists of your butcher as well as cutter number 1 and cutter number 2. So there are no skinners in this gang. And just like before, you will use your initiates to infiltrate and to shoot your enemy with hand flamers. So that's what these guys will be equipped with. This will cause confusion, suppression, also cause blaze tokens to scatter your enemies, and this is how you're going to suppress your enemy, by getting up close and personal and setting them on fire. And once that's done, and then you send your assault team to move up forward to just kind of mop up and kill whoever's left alive. Now your butcher is going to cost you 210 credits. He's going to be equipped with paired butchers, chain cleavers, as well as bull charge. That way they get additional attacks. Your cutter number 1 is going to be cost you 210 credits. He's going to be equipped with paired butchers, chain cleavers, as well as a corpse grinder cult icon, as well as slaughterborn. So that way you can move up closer, get it faster, start fighting people that way. Your second cutter is going to cost you 170 credits. He's going to be armed with paired butchers, chain cleavers, as well as slaughterborn special rule for exactly the same thing. Now your 4 initiates are going to cost you 100 credits apiece. Initiate 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all equipped the same thing. They're all equipped with hand flamers, so that way they can run around and set people on fire and cause all kinds of problems that way. Now this gang is the smallest gang that I have in my starting list, but you could really use this stuff to create some chaos. The hand flamer is excellent at setting people on fire, as well as suppressing your enemies, while your guys with your butcher as well as your cutters kind of come in and sweep up whoever's left over. And that pretty much makes up the Firestarter build. Now, the last list I have is what I call the power build, is what I call this one, and this one's going to cost you 1,000 credits. And just like this one, you either need the Dark Uprising starter box set or 1 box of Corpse Grinders. Now, this would be my preferred starting list. If I myself was to play Corpse Grinder cults and I wanted to get into a campaign, this is what I would build for my gang. Now, just like the other gangs before, this one consists of 2 fire teams. You have a support element as well as an assault element. Your support element will consist of 3 initiates. Initiate number 2, initiate number 3, as well as initiate number 4. And your assault element will consist of your butcher as well as 2 cutters, cutter number 1 and cutter number 2. And you also have initiate, which would be initiate number 1. Now, in this list, you have it all. You have ambushing initiates, dropping smoke grenades all over the battlefield. You have 1 ambushing initiate, setting people on fire with a hand flamer. And you have powerful close combat with your butchers and your cutters slicing up anybody who's still alive. So let's go and talk about that list real quick. So your leader is your butcher. It's going to cost you 240 credits. He's got paired butcher's chain cleavers. He's also got a stim slug stash to give him additional movement as well as a boost to his strength as well as attacks. And he's got the commanding presence ability to do large group activations. Then you also have cutter number 1. It's going to be costing you 240 credits for this fighter. Armed with paired butcher's chain cleavers. Also got a stim slug stash, a corpse grinder cult icon, as well as slaughterborn, so that way they can get stuck in and slice up people as quickly as possible. Cutter number 2 is going to cost you 240 credits. This fighter is going to be armed with paired butcher chain cleavers, as well as a stim slug stash, as well as slaughterborn for those exact same reasons as cutter number 1, as well as the butcher. Now, you have 4 initiates. Initiates number 1, 2, and 3 are going to be, initiate number 1 is going to be a little bit more expensive. He's going to cost you 125 credits. He's armed with a hand flamer, so that way he can infiltrate and set people on fire. He's got a stub gun, so that way he can shoot as well as a boning sword, so that way he can fight in close combat. Initiates 2, 3, and 4 are going to cost you 65 credits apiece. They're going to be armed with stub guns, boning swords, as well as smoke grenades. So these guys will be able to shoot, they'll be able to lob smoke grenades to control and elusive approach, and keep your opponent from shooting at your close combat fighters. At the same time, they can also fight in close combat as well. Now, these are my power build, and this is actually what I would use if I was to start up a campaign myself. So you have you guys, this is my take on the Corpse Grinder cult for starting up a brand new campaign with this gang in any campaign of Necromunda. Now this is actually a very interesting game to play with really powerful close combat. They have insanity all up in their rules. At the same time, they also have really good stealth as well. They're both very powerful in close combat as well as resilient for taking shots and attacks back. And of course, blood for the blood god, especially if you want to be a chaos player and you don't want to play a hell out chaos cultist. So this is my recommendations for you guys for your Corpse Grinder guild whenever you want to start these guys up brand new, whenever you're playing a brand new campaign of Necromunda. So that's good for those of you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest and greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.